The night over, Renford felt charged like static before a midnight storm when Riley Greer found a book that would change everything. It was almost closing time at Bygone Books, and the old shop was ghostly quiet. Stacks teetered in the dim light. Dust motes drifted beneath the bulbs as city sounds filtered through warped glass. Riley, sleeves rolled past their elbows, worked methodically. They alphabetized the worn volumes with practiced care, scanning spines and titles, savoring the calm found only among paper and ink. But tonight, something was off. The street outside, always alive with chatter and headlights, seemed muffled and distant, like a city filtered through fog. Shadows in the alleyways lingered a little too long. Neon signs flickered with a language Riley could almost but not quite read. They noticed the book out of the corner of their eye, slim, dark green, wedged behind a battered atlas. No label, no author. Just an embossed symbol shaped like an old street lamp, its glass orb swirling with silver leaf. Curious, Riley slid the book from the shelf. The cover felt strangely warm. When they opened it, pages fanned out in a rush of ancient dust and something else, an unfamiliar scent, like cold stone after rain. Inside, the text was a tangle of English and spiraled glyphs. But what caught Riley's attention was a slip of paper, so thin it seemed nearly transparent, wedged between pages at random. Riley held it to the lamp. The scrawl was jagged, urgent. Some streets don't stay where you left them. Midnight, Lantern Gate. Bring the book. The shop lights flickered. You're watching verified nightmares where every chapter reveals a darker secret. If the mystery's pulling you in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore other stories right here on the channel. Your next haunt could be just around the corner. Riley stepped toward the front window, searching for what exactly? The sidewalks glimmered faintly, and just past the streetlights, alleys seemed to realign themselves, offering new pathways that hadn't been there hours ago. For one breathless moment, Riley swore the city was rearranging under their gaze. A deep, resonant bell tolled somewhere once, then again. The sound rattled the shelves and sent a shiver down Riley's spine. They pressed the ciphered page back into the book, heart pounding. Beyond the glass, a figure paused beneath a flickering lamppost, face hidden beneath a hood. The figure tapped twice on a metal pole. The world bristled with expectation. Riley swallowed, mind tumbling with questions. Curiosity flared warm, almost magical, overcoming the urge to hide. They locked the shop door, checked the time, 11:58. Riley slid the book into their bag, drew on their jacket, and stepped into the uncanny night. Outside, the city seemed to shift and breathe. Old alleys opened to new corridors. Neon flared in unknown colors, and the ordinary world shimmered as if waiting for its secrets to finally be found. Riley walked toward the Lantern Gate, unaware that the next step would welcome them into a world hiding just beneath the surface, where every street corner and whispered riddle hid a door worth opening, and a danger waiting to be named. Shadows in the stacks. Riley Greer's world lived in the liminal spaces between the city's clamor and its shadows, between the living and the stories that haunted Renford long after midnight fell. In Bygone Books, the shop where Riley worked, time felt slowed, as if the outside world paused at the threshold and the past gathered quietly on the high, teetering shelves. The shop was cramped and labyrinthine, its corners so filled with books that even light seemed reluctant to linger. Some nights, Riley saw the stacks rearranged themselves, aisles narrowed, exit signs blinked out, books the color of dried blood appeared and vanished, always in languages Riley didn't know. The owners, Arthur and Lucy Cartwright, treated the place as a living diary for the city. Renford had records far older than memory, Lucy used to say, and every shelf was a hidden chapter. Lucy was gone now, disappeared to visit family up north, but Riley sometimes heard her humming in empty rooms. That evening, icy rain needled the windows and Riley's boots left faint, wet prints on the cracked tile. Renford seemed itchier than usual. Sirens had drifted downtown all afternoon. Some students claimed the clock tower chimed 13 times at 3 a.m. the night before. The university police cordoned off an alley behind the library, rumor said a sophomore wandered through and never made it out. Riley caught snippets of speculation in the coffee light on campus, portals, gangs, curses. Renford loved its gossip, but feeling it just beneath the surface, like stagnant water under a bridge. Arthur was at the counter thumbing through a collection of city legends, his horn-rimmed glasses nearly buried beneath a stack of receipts. "Lost in your thoughts, Riley?" He looked up, eyeing the green book from last night as it peeked out Riley's bag. "I walked past Lantern Gate," Riley said, their voice low. "Swear I saw a new alley where the dog park used to be." Arthur's smile was tight, missing the usual grandfatherly warmth. "Some streets in Renford never settle. We're just caretakers. Just fix the horror section, will you?" Paperbacks seemed to multiply after dark. Riley's hands trembled as they shelved the battered copies. The horror section sprawled into the oldest part of the store beside a window that peered into the alley. Outside, neon advertisements flashed in glitchy patterns. Raindrops traced erratic paths down the glass, distorting streetlights into spectral halos. For a second, Riley thought they saw a tall, thin figure watching from across the alley, face obscured by an impossibly wide-brimmed hat. When they blinked, the figure was gone. Customers trickled through. A retired teacher who always smelled of mothballs and midnight oil. A pair of high schoolers daring each other to read passages from a moldy collection of unsolved city debts. Mara Whitaker, as ever, equal parts familiar and uncanny, hair damp from the rain. Satchel stuffed, drawing strange sigils with her finger on the counter while she waited to pay for a dog-eat Lovecraft anthology. "Did you notice?" Mara whispered as Riley handed her the book. "Something's wrong with the lanterns tonight. The light's the wrong color. Too green." Riley glanced toward Lantern Gate's direction. "I noticed." Mara slid a note across the counter, her handwriting jagged. "Meet me after closing. Trust the patterns." Her mismatched eyes lingered on Riley's. "You're watching too, right? The shapes, the doors." "All the time," Riley whispered, heart pounding. By closing, only Arthur remained, humming an old blues tune, lost in ancient receipts. "Be careful out there, kid. Renford's got its own memory, and it doesn't always like to share." Riley zipped their jacket and checked the time. 9:52 p.m. The city was glazed with rain. Side streets fractured into puddles, reflecting infinite copies of street lamps and signs the boundaries between worlds smudged at the edges. Mara waited under the awning, notebook open, her pencil twitching with nervous energy. "That alley I mentioned near Lantern Gate. It's not mapped anywhere, but I found it on an index card taped inside a copy of Legends of Renford. Door wasn't there at dusk. Walked past at 8:50 it had appeared, painted blue, locked tight." The sense of unease grew as they walked. Distant sirens faded, giving way to Renford's after-midnight sounds, metallic whispers, shuffling feet, the groan of old pipes far beneath the pavement. They passed under a bridge where steam rose from a grate, shapes flickering in the fog. Someone, or something, watching and waiting. As they neared Lantern Gate, Riley clutched the green book harder. The air smelled chemical ozone after a summer storm. The city seemed to lean closer, as if to hear every footstep. Mara traced her finger along a wall as they passed, muttering softly. Chalk white glyphs blossomed where her touch landed. They reached the new alley. It wasn't an alley at all when Riley checked Renford's online maps, just a drainage path a month ago. Now, old brick walls pressed together, forming an archway topped by a tarnished copper lantern that hummed with sickly green light. "Are you ready?" Mara asked, breath misting in the cold. Riley swallowed hard, feeling the night's old terror prickling their skin. "Ready as I can be." They stepped beneath the lantern. It flickered once, twice, casting shadows that curled like fingers. The alley stretched far longer on the inside than it looked from the street doors, with cloudy panes blinked open and closed as if in time with Riley's heartbeat. The green book grew warm in their arms. Riley's breath forked in strange patterns, runes and sigils danced in the air for a moment before fading. Halfway down the alley, something moved. A pale face flashed in a second-story window, there and gone. A low, keening sound drifted through a vent, half sob, half warning. Mara pressed a scrap of paper into Riley's hand. If something happens, find Arthur. He knows more than he pretends. Mara's eyes were wild. And whatever you do, don't answer if someone whispers your name from the shadows. At the alley's end stood an iron door edged with a lantern symbol, the same from the Green Book. From the other side, a chill swept out, smelling of violets and old dust. The city's heartbeat pounded between Riley's temples. Something inside waited a test. A message or a monster wearing the city's skin. Riley stepped closer. Mara at their back. The edge between wonder and horror razor thin but irresistible. As the door creaked open, Riley realized this wasn't just a city of stories, it was a living thing, hungry for attention, eager to reveal its secrets one terrifying layer at a time. Tonight, Renford would decide whether Riley Greer was merely a witness, or its newest legend. Hidden in plain sight, the iron door groaned open with a sound like distant thunder, swallowing the last echoes of street noise behind Riley and Mara. City air poured at their backs, heavy, damp, thick with the electric scent of ozone. Inside that threshold, the world changed. They stepped onto cracked flagstones, lantern glyphs etched into every surface, their glow faint and shifting green, gold, then a sharp, unnatural blue. The corridor twisted at improbable angles, lined with worn doors let into brick and old glass. Light seeped in from unknown sources, casting shadows shaped like runes Riley had only glimpsed in haunted margins of campus notebooks. Behind them, the eddy now looked smaller, reduced to a slit out there. The city pulsed on in normal rhythms, while inside, time stuttered, slowed. Riley's heart drummed against their ribs. The air was colder here, full of whispers that skittered along the walls before dissolving into silence. Mara moved with purposeful strides, sketchpad clutched tight. Whatever happens, don't lose sight of the lantern marks. They're the only way back, Riley nodded, scanning the archways where faded paper talismans flapped. Something shifted overhead, a flutter of moths, maybe, or scraps of memory unable to rest. Shadowy shapes flickered at the periphery, faces appearing and vanishing behind warped glass, eyes bright with unreadable intent. A door creaked open ahead. Arthur Cartwright stood on the threshold, his silhouette outlined by a yellowish lantern suspended overhead. His glasses flashed, revealing pinpricks of reflected light. "You're late," he said, voice brittle with fatigue. "The city doesn't like tardiness." Mara stiffened, keeping Riley at her side. "We found the shifting alley. The door, just like you described." Riley brought the book. Arthur's eyes darted to Riley's back. "Let me see." Riley handed over the Green Book. Arthur flipped through the pages, muttering under his breath in a language Riley barely recognized, half English, half old city dialect. The lantern above Arthur's head began to pulse, reacting to each word. "Did you come alone?" Arthur asked, eyeing the corridor behind them. No one followed, Mara replied, voice steady but at half whisper. Arthur waved them inside a cramped office, all sagging from the weight of dozens of annotated city maps, papers pinned in frantic arrays. Strings of runes connected alleyways to dead ends, doors to nowhere. Riley recognized streets and blocks they'd walked since childhood, but some spots were blank, erased as if the city itself wanted their secrets lost. Arthur closed the iron door, flipped on a desk lamp, and stared hard. "You need to understand something. Renford is layered like sediment. What you see tonight is what most will never see except the ones who disappear." His voice grew harsher. "That alley is old magic. Someone's waking up the Lantern Society's oldest protections, and not for the good of this city." Riley squeezed Mara's hand, eyes darting through the office's shadows. "What's in the book?" Arthur hesitated. "Coded messages. Maps of how the city rearranged during the blackout. Names of every person who vanished and reappeared different. He tugged at a slip of paper stuck to the inside cover, a city permit, dated 3 years prior, marked void. If the patterns are starting again, you will need more than curiosity. You'll need luck, nerves, and allies who know the darkest corners. The shop rumbled pipes overhead, maybe, but the sound felt deeper, rattling the bones beneath the floor. Mara paced, tracing lantern marks in her notebook. A gust of cold wind slipped through the gaps in the walls, and Riley shivered. Something outside crushed a trash bin, overturned by unseen hands. Arthur locked the office door and shut off the desk lamp. "You get 2 rules for tonight," he whispered. "Never say your full name. Never open the book alone." The office felt too small to charge. Riley's mind spun. Lantern sigils glimmered in the corners. Mara's faint sketches grew more frantic. "What do we do next?" Arthur's face softened, age and weariness overtaking old suspicion. "You listen, and you run. If you see the lantern light turn red," from beyond the battered threshold came a thin, high-pitched giggle, a sound that sent Riley's skin crawling. Mara braced herself beside the shelves. Arthur ushered them through a concealed passage into the archives, a low-ceilinged room lined with books, newspapers, ledgers, and rolled parchment maps. In one shadowed corner, a radio hummed static, only faint voices breaking through. Fragments of warnings, memories, names repeated in sequences that made Riley's head swim. "Every horror story in Renford roots somewhere in here," Arthur murmured, gesturing at a wall of case files. "Dead ends that weren't so dead. Lost alleys, waking nightmares." Riley looked over the files and faded brown, others fresh, labeled in Arthur's cramped hand. One envelope was addressed simply, "Ike Greer." The hairs on Riley's neck prickled. "What's this?" Riley asked, reaching for it. Arthur stopped them. "That's for later. Tonight, you begin at Lantern Gate. That means a test, the city's way of choosing who can move through its layers." A clang echoed from the entryway, the sound too deliberate to be accidental. Mara stepped forward, flashlight ready. Riley's grip tightened on the green book. "Stay close. Whatever you see, keep moving. If the lanterns go out, run." They snuck through narrow halls, lantern marks glowing softly overhead. At the heart of the archive, a spiral staircase wound downward, deeper than Riley knew Renford's underground went. The steps creaked, each one echoing like footsteps in a cavern. At the bottom, a circular room lit by a single blue lantern. In the center was a table with 7 objects: a silver key, a bundle of dried leaves, a cracked compass, a scrap of mirror, a coin, a torn photo, and a wax seal stamped with the lantern glyph. Arthur gestured to Riley. "The city asks for something in return. Choose wisely." His eyes were tired, but expectant. Riley reached out, fingers hovering between the mirror and the photo. Something in the green book pulsed within their backpack, like a slow heartbeat. They picked up the scrap of mirror. In its fractured surface, Riley saw their own pale, tense reflection marred by something swirling behind them, half shadow, half memory. The lantern blinked red for a fraction of a second. Arthur jolted. Mara grabbed Riley's arm, and the world spun. All around the circular room, the walls bulged, lantern marks flaring one after another. A force yanked Riley back through layers of time and fear until they hit pavement in the rain outside Lantern Gate. Mara landed beside them, breathless. The iron alley door was gone, but the mark on Riley's palm, a faint lantern, burned into the skin, proved they had passed through. Renford had chosen them. The horror in the city was waking, and Riley was no longer an innocent observer. Tonight, the city had asked for a prize. The real nightmare was only beginning. The Lantern Society. Renford, when awake to its true self, pulsed with more than traffic and rain. That night, the city's bones rattled beneath the concrete, and Riley Greer felt every tremor in their chest, a reminder that the world they knew was only one layer among many. Riley's palm tingled with the faint outline of the burned-in lantern mark. All through the wet walk home, they clenched their fist, half hoping the symbol would fade, half terrified it was permanent. Mara kept it close, the two of them ducking beneath awnings, skirting police tape. glancing at alley mouths that had widened since morning. "What happens now?" Riley finally asked, voice low so the wind couldn't overhear. Mara studied the city's glimmering veins, neon, lanterns, steam. "Now we find Edith Harrow. She's the head of the Lantern Society. She'll know how deep the shifting goes and what price the city exacts." Riley hesitated. "Arthur said people disappear, that sometimes when they come back, they're different." Mara's mouth tightened. "Some don't come back at all. Some become part of the city. Eyes behind the glass, hands on the wheels of change. If your mark stays, Riley, you're in this now, bound by city law and whatever horror rules the night." They paused beneath a bank of flickering signs near the old tram stop. Through a hazy storefront window, a chess game played itself, pieces moving without hands, each move scrawled with runic ink. Riley caught a glimpse of 3 faces in reflection, none they recognized, all frozen in unreadable terror. The city seemed to stutter on its axis, dull shadows unfolding into something hungry. When Riley and Mara reached Bicon Books, Arthur was there, fumbling with an envelope, the store's interior dark, except for a single lantern bracketed behind the counter. He shook his head as they entered. "You went through the archive?" Riley nodded. "Was it a test?" Arthur avoided their gaze. "The society tests all who wander too far, all who ask more than the city wants to answer. Edith will see you now. Go to the reading room back past the horror stacks, down the staff corridor. Knock 3 times." The store's corridors felt longer tonight. Books whispering in unison, stories curling in corners, echoing snatches of Riley's own fears. The staff hallway froze the air around them, each step a memory. Lucy's laughter, Mara's warnings, Arthur's sleepless watch. At the reading room, Riley knocked as instructed, 3 hollow thuds that reverberated deeper than mere wood. The door creaked open to soft lamplight. Dust mote spun in beams like falling stars. In the center, a trio sat around a heavy oak table. Edith Harrow, hunched and wise, her hair silver as moonlit water. Beside her, Marcus Baines, the city detective who'd been watching Mara for weeks, his brow furrowed in concern. The third, Evelyn Sorrel, her gaze sharp, calculating, clothes dark as spilled ink. "Welcome, Riley Greer," Edith murmured, her accent thick with old Renford intonations. "You passed the city's first gate. Sit." She gestured at an empty chair painted with arcane scrollwork. Riley sank into the seat, green book heavy in their lap. Mara stood nearby, poised, arms folded tight. Edith's cane tapped at the floor, a coded rhythm. 1, 2, 3, pause, 4. "You now bear the mark. You've seen the door and the archives. That burns the city into your memory and binds you to our society." Evelyn's lips curled, amusement dancing at the edges. "Not all marks are permanent. Not all who pass remain themselves." Marcus tucked his coat, fingers brushing the lantern lapel pin. "Magic is leaking again. People say they're followed, that doors appear and vanish. My job is to keep order. Your job, it seems, is to understand the chaos." Edith tapped the book. "Riley, do you fear Renford?" For a moment, the reading room was utterly silent. Riley swallowed, feeling the weight of every story, every rumor. "I do. But I want to know the truth more." Edith smiled, solemn. "That's the difference between a citizen and a seeker." Mara briefed Riley on the lantern ritual. Baines watched the door. Marcus nodded, moving to stand sentry, eyes sharp for more than human trespassers. Mara sat, opening her notebook. "The lantern ritual sorts new members. You'll face a trial. The city itself challenges you, sometimes with memory, sometimes with nightmare. Tonight's ritual follows 3 steps. 1. Mark a story of your own onto city walls. 2. Fetch something lost from the archives. 3. Face a memory brought to life and stand your ground." Riley's mind raced. "What if I fail?" Evelyn leaned in, voice silk and shadow. "Fail, and you'll forget. The city will erase you from its secret history." "Alive, maybe, but less than you were." Edith pressed a slip of paper into Riley's hand, a map stitched from intersecting codes. "You have midnight. Choose your story wisely. Riley and Mara left the reading room, nerves like wires sparking under their skin. The city outside throbbed with anticipation, Renford building itself in new directions as the hour approached. They found themselves at Memory Wall, a drab concrete span coated in graffiti, sigils, and old warnings, some in English, some in runic tongue. Mara handed over chalk. Write something only you know a truth. That's your first step. Hands trembling. Riley scrawled a confession to the wall, their secret spilling out onto public canvas. Sometimes I dream I'm lost in Renford, and the city answers in voices that aren't my own. The wall shimmered, lantern marks glowing in the mortar. Riley's mark flared against their palm. Step 1 complete. For the second step, Mara led Riley back into the archives, past dusty ledgers and spectral journals. The green book pulsed, leading them deeper. Riley's gaze landed on a small box wrapped in blue cloth, the initials LH burned onto it. They felt compelled to open it. Inside, a brass key and faded photograph, Lucy Cartwright, smiling, in front of Lantern Gate. A whisper echoed from the shelves. Return what's been taken. Find the memory. Riley took the photograph and returned to the reading room. Evelyn glanced at it. Her eyes narrowed. Last step. Edith's cane tapped. Face your memory. Suddenly, the lights flickered and the air grew frigid. The photograph burned with cold, and Lucy's smile distorted until her mouth stretched to wide, eyes filling with darkness. The room blurred. Reality bent toward nightmare. Riley's pulse hammered as Lucy no, the memory of Lucy spoke in a voice like shattered glass. Stay, Riley. Stay and be mine. Walls blurred. Shelves moaned. Evelyn's shadow stretched. Marcus jerked toward the door. Mara gripped Riley's arm, grounding them. Riley closed their eyes and shouted, I am not yours. I am not a memory. The darkness receded. Lucy's face softened. The photo crumpled in Riley's fist. The room cleared. Edith's smile was pained, but proud. You passed, she whispered. Now you're part of Renford's secret history. The green book glowed in Riley's bag. Evelyn leaned closer, voice edged. But the city is only just waking. Rituals have consequences. Now, Riley, you'll learn that some doors in Renford never close, and some nightmares never really die. Outside, rain struck the stained glass as midnight tolled. The city watched and waited. Riley Greer, chosen by the Lantern Society, stepped out knowing that horror had only truly begun. Codes and consequences. Rain hammered the windows of bygone books, painting watery shadows across the horror stacks. The city beyond was restless, sirens echoing, alleyways glowing with cryptic symbols, and every window reflecting secrets Riley Greer could no longer ignore. Their mark palmaged as if the lantern burn sought air. The feeling was both invitation and warning. Arthur Cartwright kept glancing at Riley, his usual calm replaced by a nervous edge. Mariah was pacing, her boots making chafed marks on the old wood floor, sketchpad clutched to her chest. The green book on the table seemed to pulse and breathe, its cover rippling in rhythm with Riley's own heartbeat. The city is talking tonight, Arthur said finally, his voice raw with worry. Not everyone can hear it. Some ignore the warnings, they disappear. For you, Riley, the city's watching closer than you realize. Riley looked at their friends, feeling a gulf opening beneath the familiarity. Is that why the mark hurts? Yes, Mara whispered. It means something is pushing through. The Lantern Society's old protections are stirring, but so are things that roam behind them. A clock somewhere in the depths of the store let out 3 dull chimes. The lights flickered. Mara pressed her face to the window. Look by the alley, her voice quivered. A figure stood in the rain, a little too tall, a little too thin, body bending at an unnatural angle, like a shadow stretching of the margins of a page. In place of a face, it wore a cracked porcelain mask, lips painted with a smile that suggested neither joy nor comfort. In its hand a battered lantern that glowed sickly green, the flame inside barely tethered. Arthur swore softly. That's an archivist's remnant. No one has seen one in decades. Riley pressed their hand to the glass. Through the fogging pain, the masked mouth moved, not speaking but scraping at Riley's thoughts, a needle on old vinyl, scratching messages into their skull. You belong to the city now. Find the lost code, or pay the price. Riley staggered back, breath shallow. It spoke inside my head. Arthur locked the front door, flipping the closed sign with trembling fingers. If the remnant is here, you're being tested. The archives must be shifting. The lost codes are moving in the city. If you don't find what it wants, the next sign will be blood, not rain. Tension spiked as Mara locked eyes with Riley. Can you trust me, Riley? Even if it gets strange? Riley's answer was a shaky nod. I'll have to. Arthur retrieved a battered key from beneath the counter. He handed it to Riley. There is an annex under the old tram tunnel where the city stores memories too haunted to remain in the archives. The key only works if you believe in what you are protecting more than what you fear losing. Mara and I will take the upper route. You go alone. The remnant only ever wants one witness at a time. Riley hesitated. Inner walls trembling with fear, but thirsting for truth. What if I don't come back? Arthur put a steady but heavy hand on Riley's shoulder. You will. You're marked now. The city will not let go easily. With the green book and key in hand, Riley slipped out the back entrance, rain instantly soaking through their jacket. The city felt sharpened, alleys darkened to pitch, windows glowing red in a pattern across the block. Renford's usual palette was gone, only shades of nightmare bled through. As Riley approached the tram tunnel, the ground vibrated underfoot, as if something massive moved beneath the city's surface. Shadowed figures gathered at the tunnel's mouth, brief glimpses of lost citizens, all with flickering lantern marks on their hands, their faces shifting, features never settling. They parted for Riley, melting into fog with hissing sighs. Inside the tunnel, Riley's breath turned to clouds. Sigils crawled across the walls, some Old English, some twisting, unknown script. Riley pressed the key to a rusted panel, whispered, "Let me in," and the wall dissolved into a portal of shuddering blue light. The annex stretched before them, tunnels lined with shelves of objects sealed in cloudy jars, photographs that moved, lockets that rattled, mirrors that held shadows not reflected in the real world. Behind one case, something moved, a presence cooler than the air, a whisper that pulsed in the lantern mark. Riley followed a cable of green light to an old shelf labeled codes and consequences. Inside, a ledger, pages crumbling, the code hidden among names and dates, and a single message. Break the circle, invite the nightmare. Repeat the cycle, save the city. Decide. The words twisted into Riley's vision. Behind, a jaw fell, glass shattering. Shadows spilled and circled them, lost faces in the gloom, hands reaching for salvation that would never come. One spectral voice hissed, "Don't take it. To know a code is to owe its debt. We are the city's keepers, forever watching, never free." Riley's pulse thundered, fear threatening to splinter their spine. But the green book glowed with a heat both comforting and painful. The mark on their palm blazed, guiding their shaking fingers to the code. As they read it aloud, the jars trembled, a howl tore upward through the ceiling, and every lantern in the annex flickered red until suddenly, violently, they all went dark. Total silence. Then footsteps, the click of boots in darkness, not Riley's own. Mara's voice called through the black, breaking the spell. "Riley, it's me." "Hang on." Light returned by degrees, blue at the edges, gold at the heart. Mara appeared in the portal, eyes wide with worry. Riley collapsed into her, breath heaving. "I got the code, but the price." From the far end of the annex, a mask glimmered, the remnant's eyes opening like black holes. Its lips cracked into a wider, impossibly stretched smile. Voice creeping over reality. "You chose memory over ignorance. The cycle continues, and you carry the consequence." Lightning struck somewhere above. The city roared in reply. The annex portal yawned wide, spitting Mara and Riley into rain-slicked Renford. Behind them, the tunnel closed, But the legend now burned into Riley's mind chimed with the rhythm of a dangerous future. Arthur was waiting at the back door, pale but smiling grimly. The remnant's gone. For now. Did you get it? Riley nodded, suddenly exhausted. The horrors of the annex and the remnant pressing at the edges of their recollection. The cycle isn't broken, but the nightmare isn't over, Arthur grimaced. That's always how it works in Renford. Now, you're truly part of the Lantern Society. And its nightmares, as the three of them stepped back into the flickering safety of bygone books, Riley realized their world was irrevocably changed. The city's hunger for memory, courage, and truth would not be easily satisfied, and some codes brought more horror than protection. But tonight, at least, the remnant had been appeased, and Riley Greer, battered but unbroken, had learned to walk the line between memory and nightmare. The Lost Alley. Night in Renford was never fully dark, not for those who had passed through the Lantern Society as rites. The city clung to its twilight, weaving dreams and nightmares into the alleys between stories. Riley Greer, with the ledger's code still vibrating in their consciousness, slept fitfully, plagued by faces behind glass and hands reaching from rain-soaked bricks. Every time they blinked awake, the lantern mark on their palm was faintly glowing, and the city hummed like distant thunder. By morning, the rain was unrelenting, washing the streets in silver. Marat's message appeared before Riley's alarm even sounded. Meet me near Lantern Gate, East Alley. The city's shifting again. Militars. Riley hurried through sodden streets, clutching the green book beneath their jacket. Every window seemed to flicker with movement, as if the city's memory lurked just beyond view. Beneath a cracked viaduct, an old poster peeled from a wall, revealing layers of lost advertisements, missing cats, vanished people, all sharing the motif of a lantern. At Lantern Gate, Marat stood waiting, tense and silent. She held a folded city map with fresh chalk marks. They say Harold Cummings, the baker on Willow Street, walked into his alley last night and never came out. His wife dreamed he was calling her name from a tunnel just below the storm grates. Riley's chest tightened. Another one. Marat nodded grimly. We have to find the last alley. It's not enough to solve riddles anymore, Riley. People are getting swept into the city's hunger, and not all of them come back right. She passed Riley a length of red string and a stick of white chalk, the society as tools for marking safe passage. The ledger, the mark, the book, they all want you to find what the city's trying so hard to forget. They studied the map. Marat's chalk traced a red line through intersections that shimmered in and out of focus, a cartographer's nightmare. Streets that didn't stick to north or west, but veered through memory and shadow. This point wasn't here before Ravelin Lane, on the map yesterday. Now it's only in the city's stories. They set out, chalk marking curbs, tying string to lampposts. The path bent through markets and side streets, people parting as if sensing something holy or unclean. Vendors packed up the moment Riley and Marat passed a city's subtle defense. At a faded mural, Marat paused, her hand trembling as she traced a lantern motif in deep blue paint. This is new, she whispered, but the paint is dry. The city's rewriting itself faster than ever rewriting as maybe. Every step felt like trespass. Shadows moved along shop walls. Vents exhaled cold air with the scent of charred leaves and lavender. Riley's pulse thudded as they turned into Ravelin Lane. The last alley was narrower than Riley imagined, barely wider than to Bonnie's shoulder to shoulder. Ancient brick rows on either side, slick with moss and old graffiti morphed into fresh warnings. At the alley's mouth hung a chain, strung with tiny glass lanterns, each one glowing faintly, casting sickly patterns on the cobblestones. Riley and Marat paused, instinct warning them back. A voice drifted from deeper within, thin and stretched, like a tape played too slow. Who dares the last, finds the cost. Who names the forgotten, pays with memory. Marat's hand found Riley's. This is it. Are you ready? Together, they stepped inside. The city's noise fell away, replaced by the soft rasp of their own breath. the flicker of lantern light distorting reality. For every step forward, it felt as if something ancient was stepping with them shadow to their shadow. Halfway down, a door revealed itself where no door had been, painted with the very glyph Riley bore on their palm. It groaned open to darkness. Mara bent to mark the threshold with chalk, but her hand froze. The door itself shimmered, and a cold force sucked the chalk from her fingers, pulling it into the gloom. Riley swallowed their fear and entered first, the green book now pulsing at their side. Inside was a cramped chamber and office, or what remained of one desk piled with paperwork, city blueprints aging and curling, half-melted candles, a shattered lantern on the floor. A shape moved at the far wall. It was Harold Cummings, eyes empty, body stiff, lips parted as if to speak, but only a broken hum emerged. A spectral lantern swung loosely from his right hand, casting his shadow on all four walls. "Harold," Riley called, voice breaking. The figure jerked, eyes momentarily clearing. Who remembers Harold? No one remembers. No one wants to remember. Mara squeezed Riley's arm. The city's holding him. Maybe it's using him, feeding on the forgotten. The air grew cold, breath thrusting in their lungs. All around, papers on the desks fluttered, whispering curses and old city names. The green book ripped open, pages flying a cipher glowing in runic fire. Break the circle. Invite the nightmare. Repeat the cycle. Save the city. Decide. Riley understood with sudden clarity. To free Harold, they'd have to offer something up, a truth, a memory, maybe more. Mara met Riley's gaze. Don't give it your name. Never your name. Riley stepped close to Harold and recited the code. Old language stretching their tongue in impossible ways. The lantern on Harold's palm flared blue, then shattered, filling the alley with a storm of phantom light and wind. The papers spun upward, and the lost alley buckled as if gasping for breath. Riley felt a piece of themselves slip, a distant birthday forgotten, the face of a summer friend, a melody once hummed by Lucy Cartwright on long-ago evenings. Harold slumped, returning to himself, eyes filling with terrified clarity. He wept. Riley helped him stand, hands trembling from the supernatural cost. Mara made the sign of the lantern, guiding Harold toward the open door. Let's get out while we still know who we are. They spilled into morning Ravelin Lane, snapping shut behind like a closed wound. The alley was gone, replaced by a smooth wall. The chain of lanterns vanished. On the walk back, Harold barely spoke, afraid of his own shadow. With every step, Riley checked the mark on their palm. It now glowed with both relief and dread. Mara spoke quietly. You freed him, Riley, but what did you lose? They made their way to bygone books, streetlights winking as the city's pattern briefly stabilized. Inside, Arthur stood waiting, worry painted across his face. Riley's words were heavy. We found the last alley, but it's gone now. Harold is safe, but something is missing. In me. Arthur let out a shaky breath. That's how the city feeds. Each time you intervene, it takes something in return: names, memories, songs, maybe even hope. Riley nodded, feeling the hollowness echoing deep within. Then I'll learn to live with it, because someone has to keep the city from swallowing itself whole. Mara placed a hand on Riley's shoulder, her grip steady, her presence anchoring. We're not finished. The city's waking faster every night. We have to find out why and what's coming for all of us. The Lantern Society isn't just memory keepers anymore. We're the only thing holding the horror at bay. Outside, the rain redoubled, lanterns flickering in patterns only Riley could now read. Renford was far from safe, but for now, its secrets were held at the edge of memory, alive in those willing to pay the price. Underneath the city, the following morning, Renford seemed quieter, its traffic muffled, its neon wan, as if the city itself nursed a secret wound left by the prior night. Riley Greer woke in their cramped apartment to discover new graffiti traced on their window, a lantern mark bending into a spiral, shimmering ever so slightly in the cloudy daylight. Fear and curiosity mixed with the memory of what they'd lost in the last alley. Bygone Books felt like the city's navel, a place where stories collected, settled, and sometimes festered. That day, Arthur was nowhere to be found. Instead, Edith Harrow had sent a message through Mirror. Meet at Edgewater Steps. Time to go beneath. E.H. The Edgewater Steps spiraled down from the city's oldest square, their stone balustrades etched with the animal sigils of Renford's fabled founders: fox, owl, serpent, and wren. Legend held that the founders once walked the tunnels below to seal away that which gnaws at the roots of the city. Mirror was already waiting for Riley, her backpack stuffed with chalk, salt, a flask of black coffee, and a battered flashlight. Edgewater tunnels have always been haunted, Mirror murmured. Remember the story of the bellboy? Riley's nerves prickled. He's the one who rings the unseen bell, right? The one that summons the misplaced, the lost. Some say he's still down there, Mirror replied, stepping onto the stairs, ringing for new souls to guide below. The descent chilled their bones. The ancient passages beneath Edgewater were lined with mosaics, some crumbling, some newly mended by unseen hands. Faded frescoes hinted at old rituals, masked societies, lines of lantern bearers carrying light into the caverns. Here and there, Riley brushed their fingers against grooves fresh enough to suggest something with claws had crawled through not long before. Mirror led the way, occasionally whispering lines from city rhymes. Turn not when the bells are 3. Step not where the mosaic's free. Sing for light, but run from eyes. Beneath the city, memory dies. As they reached the first antechamber, a round room with 7 doorways, all rimmed in geometric mosaics, a shape flickered at the edge of the only lit arch. A young boy in a tattered coat, eyes void black, mouth split in a kindly grin, rang a small rusted bell. The sound splayed across the chamber, warping the edges of Riley's vision. When they blinked, he was gone, and dust fell lazily through the lamplight. That was the bellboy legend, Mirror whispered. I've seen him, always by these doors. They pressed forward into cramped catacombs lined with lantern niches. In each, ancient candles flickered. Shadows darted behind the glass, sometimes children's faces, sometimes long-fingered hands. Riley forced himself not to look too closely. Suddenly, a subterranean wind swept through, carrying long-forgotten voices. Remember us, name us, feed the city. Their lantern marks vibrated in reply. At a narrow passage, a tale was scratched into the wall, a city legend Riley had heard since childhood. The buried court, a secret trial held for the dead who had not finished their stories. According to myth, the court met in dreams and nightmares, choosing whether a wandering soul would be allowed to return above as a city legend or remain forever beneath the stones. The air grew heavier and the light more spectral. Footsteps sounded ahead, fast, desperate. Mirror and Riley pressed against the wall as a woman dashed by, pursued by the low, croaking echo of a monstrous growl. Her eyes glowed yellow for a moment, her skin half translucent, like memories flickering through neglected film. Hungry ghosts, Mirror breathed, voice low and reverent. They come out when the city is angry. Further in murals revealed other legends. The splintered choir, a ghostly assembly whose voices crack stones and mend memories. The copper binder, a shadowy figure who binds secrets with melted copper wire, marking the city's memory for those who break the unspoken laws. The gutter queen, crowned in rain and broken glass, protector of lost children who vanish after midnight. As the passage wound down to a salt-crusted junction, Edith Harrow waited, lantern in hand. Her face looked older in the ghost light, lined with hope and regret. Behind her, Marcus Baines loomed, his posture rigid, forced into bravery by supernatural necessity. You made it, Edith said, her voice echoing. The city's bones are groaning. It's not just the remnants upstairs or the last alleys. Something is clawing up from beneath, drawn by all the memory and fear. She handed Riley a faded locket. This belongs to the Gutter Queen. She was a legend, once flesh and blood, before the city needed her to become more. Tonight, if we're to save anyone above, you must return it to her court. But that's a story, Riley whispered, trembling. Edith fixed them with cold, luminous eyes. Every legend is a memory waiting to wake, and every horror in Renford began as a story someone wished they could forget. The group moved down ever tighter winding paths, their air turning foul and sweet by turns. Marat left sword lines behind them, while Edith whispered blessings for the dead, and Marcus gripped a tarnished badge gifted by the Lantern Society. They reached a gallery with an old iron grate. Water trickled through it, tracing angry patterns across the stone. Riley stepped forward, holding the locket. The water boiled as shadows flared along the wall, coalescing into the Gutter Queen. Her hair was a rainstorm, her gown stitched from city maps and broken mirror shards. Her eyes burned with the light of 1,000 early lanterns, ancient and sorrowful. "You bring memory," she said, her voice a cascade of shimmer and glass. Riley found words unlocking within them. "I bring you what was last what you became, so we might remember and Renford might endure." A ghostly wind swept the chamber, swirling the locket into the Queen's hand. In exchange, she brushed Riley's forehead. Visions poured in. Banished citizens, sealing monsters behind tiled walls. The bellboy tolling a warning for every child lost in tunnels. Hungry ghosts clawing at stories untold, desperate to become more than echoes. The Queen's blessing carried both horror and certainty. Hold the city's memory. Let the dead rest. For as long as you remember, the doors will not all open at once, but beware the day the city is hungry enough to unbar them. Suddenly, the lantern marks on everyone's palms glowed gold, warming as the underground wind faded. Marcus looked at Riley, newer empathy brimming in his stance. "We're in this, not as cops, not as legends, but as witnesses." Edith raised her lantern, murmuring, "It's enough for tonight. We'll return soon. The city's hunger always returns." They climbed the long stone stairs back into morning. Above, the rain had finally stopped, peeling blue sky over a city that felt simultaneously older and somehow lighter. As they walked, Riley glanced back once at the Edgewater steps. A single spectral lantern burned, the Gutter Queen's face briefly visible in the dawn, watchful, mournful, patient. Renford, for now, slept quietly, but Riley knew, in every legend retold and every memory preserved, the city's darkness waited, hungry for the next brave soul to descend. Rituals and rebellion. Renford's first true sunlight in days filtered through puddles and cracks, but the city did not shed its nightmares so easily. Riley Greer drifted through campers, every step shadowed by visions from beneath Edgewater, the bellboy's silent warning, the Gutter Queen's sorrow, legends now crawling beneath their skin like living ink. On the surface, life wore a mask of normalcy. Bicycles rattled past, CF patios filled, lectures resumed. But Riley saw the unnatural in every shimmer of heat, in reflections that showed an older city waiting beneath the glass. Anyone marked by the Lantern Society could sense the false calm. The city was gathering breath before a storm. By afternoon, Riley, Marat, Edith, and Marcus met in the gloom of Bygone Book's back room. Arthur lingered nearby, stacking ledgers, keeping wary watch on the dusk pouring at the door. Edith's face was grave, her lantern mark traceable even in daylight. Tonight, the society must perform the lantern ritual publicly. The city has tested you, Riley, but now it must be reminded we remember our bargains. Otherwise, the rebellion begins. Marat's eyes darkened with worry. You mean the outcasts? The ones who want Renford to unravel, so they can remake it? Yes, Edith said. The outcasts know how to call the city's hunger, to open every wound at once. Evelyn Sorrel leads them now. She's already set 3 ritual fires in the last moon. If she disrupts us tonight, she can break the lantern veil forever. Marcus unfolded a yellowed scroll on the table. The ritual is more than a test. It keeps the city's nightmares in check. Each part of Renford entrusted one keeper yours memory, Riley. Marat, you bear sight, and I meant to hold the door against whatever comes for the breathers as dusk fell. The Lantern Society gathered in Lantern Square at the city's heart. A half-circle of ancient stones rimmed the plaza, each a lantern stand weathered by centuries of rain and blood. Dozens of marked citizens stood silent, their marks pulsing with gold and blue. Riley shivered, sensing the weight of history's stories told, debts paid, bargains struck and forgotten. The ritual began with Edith, the society's anchor, reciting the founder's litany in the old city dialect, light for last, voice for silent, memory to seal, lantern to bind, breath for city, hope for night. Let the veil hold, let old wounds fade. Lanterns were lit one by one. Each glowed with a different hue: blue for memory, green for sight, red for warning, gold for protection. Riley felt a surge of energy, almost electric. The mark on their palm flared, and fragments of songs, faces, moments lost and found pulsed through their body. At the ceremony's heart, Riley stepped forward into the lantern ring, reciting their line. I carry what the city cannot forget. I offer memory to the flame. Let history burn bright, and shadow flinch from light. Mara, eyes on Mara's own mark, stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. I see what others won't. I offer sight to the flame. Let hidden stories surface, and the last find their name. Marcus bared his badge, hands steady. I hold the door. I offer courage to the flame. Let Renford's worst be faced, and if any passed through, let it be named. A wind twisted through the square, blowing cold as graveyard earth. Lanterns flickered and then, one by one, burned more brightly. The city's surface world wavered, a veil thinning. Shadows swirled at the edge, resolving into dozens of translucent forms. Lost citizens, city myths, the bellboy, the gutter queen. Even Harold appeared, faces carved with longing and warning. Suddenly, the wind stilled. The center lantern Riley's flared with searing blue light. A keening wail tore across the square as Evelyn Sorrel strode into the circle, coat swirling, eyes black with unearthly fury. She held a broken lantern spewing oily smoke. You hold the city's fear, not its hope. Evelyn's voice was a lash. This ritual binds Renford in rot and memory. Tonight, we free the nightmares. It's time to let the city choose. From her shadow, 5 masked figures stepped forth, other outcasts, their marks perverted with crackling red sigils. As they chanted in a language older than Renford, the stones around the square shuddered, their air thickened, and the lanterns thrashed as if trying to escape their stands. Edith hissed, "Hold the line. Riley, speak the ledger's code now." Riley clung to the green book, words burning their mouth. Break the circle. Invite the nightmare. Repeat the cycle. Save the city. Decide. The words hovered, luminous, twisting the veil overhead. Evelyn screamed as the blue light surged, her own shadow erupting into tendrils, ripping into the lantern circle, sending waves of frozen horror curling through Riley's bones. The bellboy's bell tolled without warning, and the spectral tide of city legends crashed into the square, hungry ghosts swirling in a cyclone. Mara gripped Riley's arm, voice straining. Don't let go of the lantern. Trust the city's memory. As the Lantern Society united, chanting the Founder's Litany, the square became ground zero for a battle between memory and rebellion. Riley's mark seared, anchoring them to everything the city feared to lose, even as nightmares clawed at their heart. At the struggle's crescendo, Marcus and one of the outcasts faced of Marcus shoving the badge against a ring of fire, disrupting their ritual, while Mara flung salt and blue chalk, her lantern mark leaving glowing barriers the shadows couldn't cross. In a final, shattering effort, Riley held the green book high and shouted, "Let memory choose. Let the city remember. Let what must be lost be lost." A tidal wave of blue light burst across Lantern Square, knocking everyone off their feet. Evelyn's outcasts dissolved into wailing shadows, flung back into the city's underlayers. The cracked lantern exploded, locking her screaming rage inside an iron circle of old and new society members. As midnight tolled, the storm guttered out. The last marks faded, some faces blurred to nothing. The bellboy tipped his hat to Riley before dissolving. The gutter queen's smile of promise and warning in one. Edith gathered the battered society. Tonight, memory holds. The ritual continues. We remember the price. But as Riley glanced at Marat, at their mark seared forever into their palm, they knew the rebellion wasn't defeated, only delayed. The city's hunger was held at bay for a night, but in the whistling wind, Riley heard legends whispering and saw doors they had yet to open. Renford breathed, watched, waited. Detective's Dilemma. The aftermath of the disrupted ritual left Lantern Square heavy with haunted silence. Stones still glimmered faintly from the blue surge of memory, but most citizens had retreated, bearing flickering marks and burdens too fresh for words. Riley Greer lingered at the edge of the square, the green book pressed to their chest. Marat stood nearby, watching the city's shadows pulse in uncertain rhythms. Marcus Baines, usually composed, now sat alone on a bench by the ancient tramline, badge in hand, lantern mark pulsing low and uncertain. Riley wandered over, feeling the strangeness in Marcus's stare. His eyes darted to shadows, as if worried the night would swallow him whole. I never believed half the stories I heard as a cop, Marcus admitted, voice frayed. City legends, haunted alleys, cursed rituals are always chalked it up to fear and myth, making sense of tragedy. You changed that for me. Riley eased down beside him. We're all changed, Marcus. The city doesn't let its secrets go without a price. Marcus turned the badge in his hand, tracing the old Lantern Society symbol etched in the back. After the ritual, I saw things, faces in the subway windows, voices in the steam. I'm scared, Riley. Not just for me. I'm supposed to protect the unmarked, the ordinary. But I'm haunted too. Riley's mark throbbed, connecting them to Marcus's fear and the ghost of responsibility. You are not alone. The society carries these burdens together. But you have to face your own nightmares. No one else can do it for you. A sudden gust of wind battered the square. Riley glimpsed Evelyn's sorrow, her eyes wild beneath broken lantern fragments. She moved with purpose, slipping in and out of focus as though reality itself was thin. Her followers, the outcasts, gathered near the tramline, voices low and urgent. Arthur appeared, grave and sleepless. They're regrouping. The rebellion isn't finished. Evelyn lost the circle, but she'll prey on anyone whose lantern mark flickers too bright with doubt. Marcus and you, Riley, are her prime targets now. The green book pulsed harder in Riley's hands. Memories pressed up from within. The bellboy's bell, the gutter queen's embrace, the feeling of drifting between city layers, losing pieces of themselves with every supernatural encounter. Marat joined Riley and Marcus, her own fear thinly masked by determination. We can't defend Renford alone. We need to understand who Evelyn is, what made her break from the society. Marcus nodded, hunched. I'll do what I can, but I need answers. How can I protect the innocent if I don't understand the city's curse? Arthur motioned for them to follow him back to Bygone Books, where Edith was already assembling society records. Inside, the shop was warmer, lights steady, shelves orderly, a fragile sense of safety. Edith greeted Marcus with a knowing look, one survivor to another. Sit, she said, gesturing at a battered table. I have something to show you, Marcus. She placed a faded journal beneath the green book. The cover was marked with the sigil Evelyn now wielded, twisted, corrupted, and cut through with red. Marcus thumbed through its pages. Notes on rituals gone awry, reports of vanished citizens, sketches of the city's legends as monsters. A letter was folded inside, addressed to Evelyn in Edith's handwriting. You fear the city because it remembers too much. You rage because loss is all you've ever known, but rebellion gives birth to worse horrors. The lantern veil binds only what mercy remains. Forgive me. He sank into the chair, heart pounding. Mara wrapped an arm around Riley, offering comfort through contact. A supernatural chill crept along the floor beneath the table. A coil of blue mist snaked out, curling toward Marcus. The green book flared, and suddenly Marcus was somewhere else, a vision overtaking the present. He stood in an alley as a child, hands clutching his father's lantern badge, terrified by shadows flickering just beyond the glow. The bellboy rang his bell nearby. The sound sent shivers through marrow and memory. Marcus's father knelt, handing him the badge. This city eats secrets. Yours, mine, everyone's. If you run from your nightmare, Rainford gets hungrier. If you tell your story, the city learns to forgive. Marcus's vision splintered. Ghosts of regret and hope pressed in. He returned gasping to the table, Riley and Mara catching him before he fell. Edith regarded him with grim sympathy. You're free to leave the society, Marcus. Or you can stay, accept your mark, face your fears, protect those who cannot see. He clutched the badge, jaw set. If my nightmare is part of Renford's legend, then so be it. I won't run. A spectral sigh echoed through the shop, a breathing of relief and warning. Arthur cleared his throat. Evelyn's followers will be hunting for fragile marks tonight. Be careful where you walk, Marcus. And you, Riley, keep your truths close. The Lantern Society is forbidden to take action beyond the veil until the next full moon. But you're unbound. Your choices will shape what the city becomes. Riley felt the mark grow hot, palms sweating. I'll fight for memory, even if it means losing pieces of myself. Mara squeezed their arm. I'm with you, Riley. We all choose what horrors to carry. No one is left unchanged. A sudden shriek split the air. Lanterns rattled as the wind outside reversed. A glimpse of outcasts streaming toward abandoned courtyards. Evelyn's voice pricked at the window glass, a vow of uncanny revenge. Edith turned off the lights, guiding the group into deeper rooms. Tonight, let's remember. Let's mourn what we lost. Tomorrow, we fight. As the city retreated into midnight, Riley sat with Mara and Marcus among stacks of old books and charred memories. Together, they swapped stories, memories of childhood streets, lost friends, legends of old gods and new fears. Each tale they told fed Renford's hunger for connection, weaving personal emotion with supernatural power. The ghosts that pressed against the window seemed to watch and wait. For now, the Lantern Society's strength was in story, in empathy. But as Riley glanced at the green book's glowing spine, they knew the cycle was only beginning. The city's nightmares would soon demand more. Every story saved was another price to be paid. For now, though, enough pain had been shared, and the dawn, however brief, belonged to the survivors. Detective's Dilemma. The aftermath of the disrupted ritual left Lantern Square heavy with haunted silence. Stones still glimmered faintly from the blue surge of memory, but most citizens had retreated, bearing flickering marks and burdens too fresh for words. Riley Greer lingered at the edge of the square, the green book pressed to their chest. Mara stood nearby, watching the city's shadows pulse in uncertain rhythms. Marcus Baines, usually composed, now sat alone on a bench by the ancient tramline, badge in hand, lantern mark pulsing low and uncertain. Riley wandered over, feeling the strangeness in Marcus's stare. His eyes darted to shadows, as if worried the night would swallow him whole. I never believed half the stories I heard as a cop, Marcus admitted, voice frayed. City legends, haunted alleys, cursed rituals, I always chalked it up to fear and myth making sense of tragedy. You changed that for me. Riley eased down beside him. We're all changed, Marcus. The city doesn't let its secrets go without a price. Marcus turned the badge in his hand, tracing the old Lantern Society symbol etched in the back. After the ritual, I saw things, faces in the subway windows, voices in the steam. I'm scared, Riley. Not just for me. I'm supposed to protect the unmarked, the ordinary. But I'm haunted too. Riley's mark throbbed, connecting them to Marcus's fear and the ghost of responsibility. You are not alone. The society carries these burdens together. But you have to face your own nightmares. No one else can do it for you. A sudden gust of wind battered the square. Riley glimpsed Evelyn's sorrow, her eyes wild beneath broken lantern fragments. She moved with purpose, slipping in and out of focus as though reality itself was thin. Her followers, the outcasts, gathered near the tram line. Voices low and urgent. Arthur appeared, grave and sleepless. They're regrouping. The rebellion isn't finished. Evelyn lost the circle, but she'll prey on anyone whose lantern mark flickers too bright with doubt. Marcus and you, Riley, are her prime targets now. The green book pulsed harder in Riley's hands. Memories pressed up from within. The bellboy's bell, the gutter queen's embrace, the feeling of drifting between city layers, losing pieces of themselves with every supernatural encounter. Marat joined Riley and Marcus, her own fear thinly masked by determination. We can't defend Renford alone. We need to understand who Evelyn is, what made her break from the society. Marcus nodded, hunched. I'll do what I can, but I need answers. How can I protect the innocent if I don't understand the city's curse? Arthur motioned for them to follow him back to Bygone Books, where Edith was already assembling society records. Inside, the shop was warmer, lights steady, shelves orderly, a fragile sense of safety. Edith greeted Marcus with a knowing look, one survivor to another. Sit, she said, gesturing at a battered table. I have something to show you, Marcus. She placed a faded journal beneath the green book. The cover was marked with the sigil Evelyn now wielded twisted, corrupted, and cut through with red. Marcus thumbed through its pages. Notes on rituals gone awry, reports of vanished citizens, sketches of the city's legends as monsters. A letter was folded inside, addressed to Evelyn in Edith's handwriting. You fear the city because it remembers too much. You rage because loss is all you've ever known, but rebellion gives birth to worse horrors. The lantern veil binds only what mercy remains. Forgive me. He sank into the chair, heart pounding. Marat wrapped an arm around Riley, offering comfort through contact. A supernatural chill crept along the floor beneath the table. A coil of blue mist snaked out, curling toward Marcus. The green book flared, and suddenly Marcus was somewhere else, a vision overtaking the present. He stood in an alley as a child, hands clutching his father's lantern badge, terrified by shadows flickering just beyond the glow. The bellboy rang his bell nearby. The sound sent shivers through marrow and memory. Marcus's father knelt, handing him the badge. This city, its secrets. Yours, mine, everyone's. If you run from your nightmare, Renford gets hungrier. If you tell your story, the city learns to forgive. Marcus's vision splintered. Ghosts of regret and hope pressed in. He returned gasping to the table, Riley and Marat catching him before he fell. Edith regarded him with grim sympathy. You're free to leave the society, Marcus. Or you can stay, accept your mark, face your fears, protect those who cannot see. He clutched the badge, jaw set. If my nightmare is part of Renford's legend, then so be it. I won't run. A spectral sigh echoed through the shop, a breathing of relief and warning. Arthur cleared his throat. Evelyn's followers will be hunting for fragile marks tonight. Be careful where you walk, Marcus. And you, Riley, keep your truths close. The Lantern Society is forbidden to take action beyond the veil until the next full moon. But you're unbound. Your choices will shape what the city becomes. Riley felt the mark grow hot, palms sweating. I'll fight for memory, even if it means losing pieces of myself. Marat squeezed their arm. I'm with you, Riley. We all choose what horrors to carry. No one is left unchanged. A sudden shriek split the air. Lanterns rattled as the wind outside reversed. A glimpse of outcasts streaming toward abandoned courtyards. Evelyn's voice braked at the window glass, a vow of uncanny revenge. Edith turned off the lights, guiding the group into deeper rooms. Tonight, let's remember. Let's mourn what we lost. Tomorrow, we fight. As the city retreated into midnight, Riley sat with Marat and Marcus among stacks of old books and jarred memories. Together, they swapped stories, memories of childhood streets, lost friends, legends of old gods and new fears. Each tale they told fed Renford's hunger for connection, weaving personal emotion with supernatural power. The ghosts that pressed against the window seemed to watch and wait. For now, the Lantern Society's strength was in story, in empathy. But as Riley glanced at the green book's glowing spine, they knew the cycle was only beginning. The city's nightmares would soon demand more. Every story saved was another price to be paid. For now, though, enough pain had been shared, and the dawn, however brief, belonged to the survivors. The Chapel of Forgotten Bells. The Chapel of Forgotten Bells crouched at the city's fractured heart, its steeple cracked by lightning, bells twisted into silence by decades of neglect. Renford's myths always ended here at chapel steps where memory and nightmare entwined. Riley Greer, Marat, and Marcus arrived at sundown, guided by the Keeper's blue glass needle and the weight of every choice behind them. The square was empty except for the lanterns lining the courtyard, their colored flames flickering in time with the tolling bells. Above, rain threatened but held, clouds brooding over the final reckoning. Marat clutched the compass needle, its song growing urgent. The wound is here. Evelyn is close. Marcus readied his badge, body taut with dread and resolve. Let's keep together. She's at her strongest among her followers. As they pushed open the heavy chapel doors, the interior groaned, a space warped by the histories that clung to the city's bones. Stained glass windows showed haunting scenes, lantern bearers braving monstrous shadows, spectral hands weaving veils of memory over trembling crowds, the bellboy holding vigil beyond the reach of dawn. Evelyn Sorrel stood at the altar, surrounded by a half-circle of masked outcasts. Her coat was stained with ritual chalk, her lantern mark pulsed a furious red, echoing through the chapel like a wound refusing to heal. "You're late," Evelyn's voice rang out, cold as the space between bells. "The city has decided. Tonight, the veil breaks." Renford's nightmares claim the memory bearers. No more bargains. Marat moved beside Riley, whispering, "Stay close. The Keeper's gift works only if we act together." Evelyn raised a flash of silver in her hand, a shard of mirror swirling with trapped faces. "Every legend I've stolen, every rupture I've caused, it's for the city, not the society. Renford deserves to remember every horror, not rot in comforting lies." Marcus stepped forward, badge and lantern mark blazing bright. "You're twisting memory into a weapon, Evelyn. That wound will never heal." Evelyn laughed, eyes wild. "Who are we to decide? The city's pain is real. Its monsters hungry. Give me the green book, Riley, and let the city learn every forgotten terror." A pulse of force rippled from the altar's spectral shadows, coiling up the walls, bells rattling overhead, glass windows shimmering as legends awoke. The bellboy appeared, tolling 9 times, summoning a tempest of forgotten souls and stories, both merciful and malignant. Marat pressed the compass needle to the green book. The symbols blazed, and the air hummed with old words. "Seal with memory, speak with truth, bear for all what cannot be held alone." Riley trembled, staring at the altar's vortex. "Marat, Marcus, if we lose ourselves, at least let it be together," they advanced. The ground split, the aisle's floor shattered as hungry ghosts clawed upward from beneath, dragging nightmares into the waking world. Lanterns swung wild, colored flames blending in surreal patterns that cut at reality's seams. Evelyn chanted in the old tongue, the mirrors shard flashing with stolen memories. Each word brought more of the city's pain to life, the air filled with cries of loss, betrayal, broken hopes. Edith Harrow, suddenly present in the shadows behind the altar, raised her ancient lantern. Her voice cut through Evelyn's. "Memory heals when shared. Pain is poison when hoarded. The veil shelters, defense don't tear it apart." The bellboy rang his bell harder, and the Keeper herself manifested in the pulsing blue light, veiled face sorrowful. "It is time," the Keeper intoned. "Memory bearers, decide. Keep pain for yourselves, or share it. Fate of Renford hangs on one choice alone or together." Riley, heart pounding, raised the green book and locked eyes with Evelyn. "You're right, Renford must remember. But the way is through unity, not isolation. Heartened, Marat sang the Gutter Queen's old lament. Marcus recited the founder's bargain from the ritual. Every line rippled through the chapel, steadying lantern marks, pulling scattered stories into focus. Evelyn wavered, mask slipping, pain etched on her face. The mirror's shard began to splinter, voices escaping whispers of lost citizens, legends whose stories never found endings. Riley stepped forward, offering the battered green book and the pulsing blue glass needle. Let us share what we've carried, so the city can heal together. The keeper accepted both, fusing memory and direction. She placed the united relics at the altar, where they blazed with gold, blue, and green. Bells above rang for the first time in years, their song rising over Renford. A wave of supernatural energy swept the chapel. Lantern marks warmed, becoming gentle reminders rather than burdens. Lost legends returned to the cityscape, woven into murals, stories, and living memory. Outcasts collapsed, their rage spent. Faces cleared of pain. Evelyn slumped, shattered but relieved. Edith gathered the society members, faces marked by both sorrow and relief. Tonight, we sealed the veil with memory and hope. Renford lives and nightmares are only nightmares, no longer curses. Riley stood in the center, the green book finally quiet, its secrets shared by all. Marat hugged them, tears mixing with laughter. Marcus gripped both their shoulders, voice thick. We did it. Together. The keeper melted back into the blue radiance, compass needle spinning in a harmonic song. The bellboy tipped his hat, signaling that stories would linger, but pain would be born anew, not hoarded. Evelyn, voice quiet at last, whispered, I was wrong to fight alone. Forgive me, Renford. As midnight tolled, the city exhaled. Bells rang free, lanterns glowed warm, and shadows withdrew into alleyways, content to wait for future tellings. Riley, lantern mark now gentle, gazed out into the waking city. Legends would continue, sometimes terrifying, always unforgettable. But now, Renford would meet its nightmares together. At Bygone Books, survivors and society members assembled for quiet celebration. Arthur brewed strong tea. Edith sang old city rhymes. Marcus kept watch by the door, while Marat doodled lantern sigils, her sadness eased by new hope. Outside, the city gleamed, rain now cleansing rather than threatening. For the first time in living memory, Renford felt whole. The legend survived, stories flourished, and pain was shared and heard, not buried. Riley felt a deep, abiding gratitude not only for survival, but for the community shaped by old bargains, new courage, and the refusal to turn from the city's shadows. Within every window, lantern, and pavement crack, the echoes of the veil stirred, soothing nightmares and reminding all who looked deeper. When memory is shared and courage is found, even the darkest city learns to shine. After the storm, Renford streets glistened with a gentle rain, different from the storms that had defined the city's nightmare weeks. The bells at the chapel of Forgotten rang softly now, threading lullabies through quiet alleys and echoing across rooftops. In their rhythms, Riley Greer heard both an ending and a promise that healing was possible, but memory could only be softened, never erased. Days passed in an uneasy peace. Bygone Books echoed with new laughter and old ghosts. Arthur kept the lights bright late into evening. Edith lingered over tea and old society records, and Marcus swept the floor with diligence, his badge now a small, comforting weight instead of an anchor. Legends were no longer whispers or warnings, but invitations for those willing to listen. Marat and Riley spent afternoons cataloguing stories. Sometimes they found themselves in contented silence, other times deep in reminiscence and reflection. Marat painted lantern motifs on bookmarks, her trembling hand steadied by hope and the knowledge that the city's future would be written in ink and courage. One rainy Sunday, Riley assembled the green book, the blue compass needle, and the silver coin from the keeper, laying them out on the counter. For the first time, none pulsed with dread. Riley traced their still glowing lantern mark and felt not pain, but kinship, a connection to everyone who survived. Everyone who had lost and reclaimed something in those haunted nights. Lucy Cartwright, long gone but never forgotten, lingered in Riley's thoughts. When Riley placed the old library card beside the register, they smiled, recalling summer sunlight and laughter echoing of shelves. The city would never return all it had taken, but its wounds could be honored, named, shared, remembered kindly. Marcus, now a trusted part of the Lantern Society, approached Riley one evening as thunder rolled gently overhead. "I call my mother every night now," he said, voice quiet. "You taught me that memories aren't meant only for keeping. They're for sharing, for letting pain breathe so it can heal." Riley smiled. "You taught me that courage grows out of fear, not in its absence." We all did. Even Evelyn, in her way, the former outcast, drifted through the city. Her lantern mark faded to pale pink. Some nights, Riley glimpsed her lighting candles in the chapel to honor the lost. The city forgave, but it never let go. Evelyn's rage was still a part of Renford's tapestry. Now, though, it was woven with humility, apology, and a vow to help those who walked the line between horror and hope. Edith gathered friends and society members for a lantern feast. The square filled with warm lanterns. Children reenacted city legends, and stories were swapped freely, a tapestry of collective healing and wonder. Riley found Mara beside the old bell boy's mosaic, both listening to the echoes of bells that, for once, sounded protective instead of mournful. "You think the nightmares will come back?" Mara asked, voice hopeful yet anxious. "They always do, in some form," Riley said. "But as long as we hold each other, tell our stories, and share the burden, the city won't have to fight alone." Outside, the rain tapered off. City lights cut clean patterns across the waking streets. The lantern veil held for now. In the stillness following midnight, Riley walked alone through Renford, lamplit and reborn. Ghosts watched from windows. Legends whispered in the wind. But it was different. This time, Riley greeted them not with fear, but with acceptance and memory. At the edge of Lantern Square, Riley traced a healing city with their marked palm and whispered a final promise to the night. "I remember, we all remember, and I will never walk alone." Renford shimmered, whole for one precious moment, as dawn broke with the gentle hope that comes after every storm.